Thank you to everyone who have joined us today, in person or online via our video conference. It is a pleasure to welcome in Tallinn, at the invitation of Estonia's Foreign Minister, Mr. Urmas Reinsalu, Germany's Federal Foreign Minister, Mr. Heiko Maas, Latvia's Foreign Minister, Mr. Edgars Rinkēvičs, and Lithuania's Foreign Minister, Linas Linkevičius. We will start with brief statements by each Foreign Minister, and then we will have time for questions as well. So please, Mr. Urmas Reinsalu, the floor is yours.
Thank you, dear Heiko, Linas, Edgars. I'm glad to see us as a quartet here in Tallinn. Actually, this meeting was supposed to take place in the midst of March. Then, because of extraordinary circumstances, we had a first chapter of our meeting via video, and we promised to meet, and I'm happy Heiko made a proposal to come to Tallinn, and this is particularly important because Germany is having parallel presidencies of the Security Council and European Union. And well, we are living in a momentum of historical time. Now our heads of state and prime ministers are sitting together almost 100 hours, finding solution to very important fiscal future decisions. I hope they will manage to do that. As always in the history of European Union, it takes time. And they will be able to breach also the record in the history of European Union of the one session of the European Council meeting. We discussed about the coming months ahead of European Union, and this is particularly pleasing Estonia that Germany has taken as a one amongst the priorities also the digitalization of European Union and digital common market perspective as one of the pillars in the priority list of presidency. We discussed also about the European Union as a global player, seeing the challenges regionally, also globally in the conflict zones. And let me applaud also Germany. We have done a marvelous cooperation, all European Union countries and also Germany during our membership in Security Council, and it's going to continue. It's very productive also to give European Union foreign policy voice heard in Security Council. And surely we discussed about the coronavirus, the situation in Europe, the need to coordinate the times we are seeing ahead. And what is important, I stressed also the importance of consistency towards European Union policy on Russia. But we need to remain sanctions on. We have seen no improvement in Normandy process. I very much welcome the important role Germany and France have taken in the quartet process. And it's very important also to give clear and strong univocal response also to the attempts of Russia to try to falsify the historical facts. And therefore the countries who are under the Russian continuing aggression as Georgia, as Ukraine, deserve our strong and dedicated support. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I give the floor to Germany's Foreign Minister, Mr. Heiko Maas.
Ja, vielen Dank, lieber Urmas, lieber Edgars, lieber
Linas and Urmas.
Vielen Dank dafür, dass dieses Treffen in unserem bereits etablierten Format hier
bringing about
kann.
This meeting here,
über jeden Kollegen, den ich physisch
a traditional meeting. I'm very happy to meet you in person, in addition to seeing you on the screen via video link. And we've seen today that meeting in person has many opportunities for better, a deeper discussion, deeper than is possible over video. So I'm very happy that this has come to pass. We've taken this opportunity to discuss various points in relation to Germany's presidency of the European Union. Is something not working?
Alles gut?
Is everything okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Weil es mir doch sehr wichtig ist, dass die
It's very important for me in relation to the partnership we have with the three Baltic countries to reflect that partnership in the presidency, because we have lots of interests in common. We all have previously also proceeded in step on various fronts, and so it was important to discuss these matters with you in person. And especially because your countries are on the digital forefront in Europe. And we've seen in the last months that in how this works in various fields, and in homeschooling field, in education in a broader sense, etc. And it is very important for us also, and we're seeing how significant it is to bring forward the digital development in the European Union, and we've lots to learn from you here. Naturally, we are hopeful that a result will be reached in Brussels today, because negotiations have been going on for a long time. Everybody is realizing that we need a solution, and we cannot hold off the problems that we have facing us. That's why it's important to take the time and to do everything possible to reach a compromise. We have, and this is part of the presidency's program, discuss how to strengthen European Union foreign policy. We'd all like to be an equal player to China and the US, not being a ball in their playing field. So foreign policy for the EU is very important for us. And naturally, this concerns also Russia. We've discussed Russia too. Russia is a topic that we're going to deal with during our presidency. And it's not only about continuing sanctions, which are linked to developments in the Ukraine, and we're all agreed on this. But we also need Russia in various conflict zones, such as Libya and Syria. So we need to continue a discussion with them, but we need to do this on clear principles. We're seeing in the European Union how China and others as well are trying to single out European countries and to pursue a separate policy with them, but we would like to present a common front. And for that we will hold a Foreign Ministers' Conference at the end of August in Berlin. Another topic which is of importance is the Eastern Partnership. We'd like to continue supporting civil society in countries which are our neighbors. And this is clearly in our common interest. Continuing the dialogue with Turkey was also a topic which was discussed, and this was discussed at the last Foreign Ministers' Council, and is going to be discussed in future too, because Turkey is a strategic partner for the EU. That's why we need a partnership, a dialogue with Turkey. And it's been said clearly that if Turkey wants to have better relations with the European Union, then topics such as the drilling in the eastern part of the Mediterranean and the matters to do with the rights of journalists in Turkey have to be discussed. So we have to look for common priorities on the one hand, but at the same time we have to clearly present what expectations we have for Turkey. We're all agreed that the European Union is only strong when all 27 countries speak with one voice and they clearly articulate our common interests, even though it might be difficult for us to find compromises in one or the other matter, and amongst other things in relation to common foreign policy.
Minister
Thank you.
Latvia, Mr. Edgar Sinkevich.
Well, thank you. I hope it works now. First of all, Urmas, thank you very much for your hospitality. And this meeting was supposed to happen almost 4 months ago, March 17th, when we actually made a video conference during the very height of the COVID-19 pandemic, and we were discussing various practical things. And from this perspective, I think that we have managed quite well. But we also discussed during our today's meeting how EU needs to respond in future, and we very much hope that the German presidency of the European Union is going to address also both economic issues, but also how to strengthen what we sometimes know to refer to the health union, and how we can be best prepared also in the future to tackle COVID-19. However, I also think that those meetings that we have, and this good tradition to meet at least once a year in the format of German-Baltic foreign ministers, have provided us with very good insight of the German presidency priorities. We fully support the presidency priorities as outlined by Heiko. I think that digital sovereignty, issues that are related to common security and foreign policy, issues that are related to economic recovery are something that we wholeheartedly support. We prepared two options, A and B, for the outcome of European Council. One that European Council fails, another that it succeeds. And I can't comment on that because it's still in the process, but I very much join my friends from Estonia and from Germany saying that we need to have ambitious decisions taken in Brussels, because both the public and also the markets are expecting those. Also, we discussed transatlantic relations, and I think that we are in agreement that we need to continue working on EU strategy towards the United States. We need to have strong transatlantic relations. Well, there are sometimes disagreements, but still we believe that transatlantic security relationship is absolutely needed for the security of Europe at large. And also we discussed next 6 months when it comes to the Brexit negotiations. We do hope that we will be able to find agreement with the UK on future relationship beyond December 31st. We want to have UK as closely cooperating with EU as possible, be it economic or be it also security and foreign policy issues. And we do hope that also during the German presidency we will be having some impetus in our relations with the United Kingdom. And let me close by echoing 3 points that have been already made. On Russia, we very much support the 5 principles approach as outlined by EU, but also we understand that there is no black and white. I think that we understand that our relations with Russia should be made in a kind of contain and engage policy. We very much support the German work on Normandy format. We also very much believe that sanctions must be kept while Minsk agreement is not implemented. But we also discussed a lot about the recent, let's say, bullying when it comes to the history in our view here in the Baltics, what President Putin has put in his article and now what we are seeing from many Russian officials is not so much about history as about the present and the future. We hear about spheres of influence. We hear about many justifications made about Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. And it is very sad as we are marking actually the 80th anniversary of the Soviet occupation of the Baltic states that this thing is happening. What Russia is doing currently using history definitely is not improving chances of our bilateral relations or the common understanding when it comes to the European issues. And on Turkey, I very much agree with what Heiko has said. It is a very important partner, but of course we do have difficulties, and we are searching the new ways also how to engage with all of our Eastern partners. So it has been a very good meeting. We will continue, but I think that this tradition of having German-Baltic discussions at the foreign ministers level has been very fruitful and has given very good insights to us here in the Baltics on German thinking, and also I think that our German friends have heard a lot from us on many topical issues.
Thank you. And last but not least, Lithuania's Foreign Minister, Mr. Linas Linkevičius.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Urmas, for hosting. It's very good to meet again, Heiko and Edgars. Although we're meeting quite often, but this traditional meeting for ministers, it's really very important, not just as tradition, but also by substance, as expected. So we went through our agenda and we continue to discuss over lunch, so it's not yet ended. Full endorsement to the presidency principles, which were outlined by Heiko Maas. And not surprising, we also in line with our thinking to make our European agenda greener, more resilient, to make sure that the European Union is a major player also in the politics, crisis management in other regions. Also very important to repeat, as it already said by the colleagues, that we have to streamline our relations between European Union and NATO, not to duplicate, not to compete, but to create more added value, more capabilities, and ability of Europeans to act together. That's also very important when necessary. When it comes to the transatlantic relations, they are really irreplaceable. Sometimes there are difficulties, but we have to overcome. And when we are split, we are weaker in whatever policies we were talking. We discussed also Russia, and agree just to remind once again that it's a very complicated partner, and we definitely cannot afford to live up to this new normal which is created while violating international law, occupying territories of neighboring countries, testing waters all the time. So we definitely should continue this 5 principles which we agreed, but not elevate one principle like selective engagement at the expense of others. I would mention as example relations with civic society. It's also very important to continue dialogue with civil society in Russia, and to have a full spectrum of our relations incorporated. This is also the case. So Eastern Partnership was mentioned. Again, not forgetting other partnerships, all neighborhood policies. We see potential to improve that in the future. This is the only maybe project which is challenged by others because of the choice of our partners. 5 out of 6 members of Eastern Partnership program having conflicts in their territory. Some of these conflicts because of that European choice. Active conflict, Russian aggression in Ukraine, or frozen conflicts in Transnistria, Moldova, or so to say borderization in Georgia continues. So this is geopolitical project, not only project of economic cooperation, although this is not accession project, definitely this is not membership, but this is something what we would like to see in the future, a more dynamic, developed, and the role of all of us is very important here. So we really touched upon many issues, and Urmas mentioned at the beginning, at the time when our leaders fighting in Brussels, I was told they spent all night, right, and now we'll come back to again. So this is really a very long meeting, again, reflecting our needs, and we exchanged briefly our concerns about the budget, about the recovery fund, and we definitely believe that this is potential not yet exhausted, so we really can improve situation there. But let leaders to discuss, and we will continue ourselves in our capacity in the same friendly atmosphere as is always a tradition of this format. So grateful once again for hospitality and for the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. And we will now open the floor to questions. Please wait until the microphone reaches you and state your name, publication, and who you're directing the question to.
Maris Helrand für das zweite deutsche Fernsehen, ZDF. Eine aktuelle Russland-bezogene Frage. Der flüchtige Wirecard-Vorstand Jan Marsalek soll sich laut Medienberichten in der Nähe von Moskau aufhalten, ein Obhut der russischen Geheimdienste. Herr Minister, was weiß die Bundesregierung darüber und was erwarten Sie von den russischen Behörden?
What do you know about this topic? What does the German government know?
Wir sind zurzeit dabei, uns mit diesem Thema auseinanderzusetzen.
We're dealing with the question and we're gathering information, but it's still too early to say anything conclusive about that. We'll do that when we have sufficient information in this matter.
On the same issue to the Minister Reinsalu, apparently Mr. Marsalek traveled via Tallinn. What does the Estonian government know about it, and what are your expectations?
Well, I don't have any expectations towards him or his business activities. I think the justice should prevail also in these matters. If there is some kind of criminal acts committed, they need to be handled, and the people responsible need to take they have to fulfill the law. But if there's anything additional information I should pass right now, no. There is no any additional information in that matter. Thank you.
Joachim Gelmenti, Estonian National Broadcasting. You've talked about a unified strategy, a foreign policy on Russia, but we see Germany moving forward with the Nord Stream 2 project. How are your comments on this? German Foreign Minister. Thank you.
Ja, das ist ein Projekt, über das wir auch innerhalb der Europäischen Union schon viel gesprochen haben.
We've discussed a lot in the European Union,
and
it's clear for us that states have different opinions. What's important is, considering these positions, is to realize that we're dealing here with sanctions that have extraterritorial influence, and it's not acceptable in our view. So, exactly as in relation to Nord Stream 2, in relation with the gas directive in the European Union, a compromise was reached. We should try to do the same here, to engage in dialogue with the European partners.
Next question.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Mihkel Märtens from Eesti Päevaleht. A question to the German Foreign Minister. In recent days, the German Economy Minister, Mr. Altmaier, defended to an interview in Politico the refusal to be tougher on China's actions in Hong Kong, saying that it could have tougher economic consequences. What kind of defense can you offer for supporting stronger economic ties with a country which has over 1 million people held in modern-day concentration camps? Thank you.
Well, this is a topic that was discussed in Brussels at the last meeting of foreign ministers. Proposals were made that are being discussed now. The question of to what extent dual-use goods can be delivered to Hong Kong in relation to the arms export directive. And should Hong Kong be treated as mainland China? and would also like naturally to have better access possibilities for journalists and others, and for scientists who are facing difficulty in working in their professions after the new laws. And the legal cooperation agreements and extradition agreements are other topics that should be dealt with in the light of new security laws. And there should be a new agreement with Hong Kong too. We're considering this, and we're discussing these matters with other European nations.
Christian Feld, ARD Fernsehen.
Christian Feld from ARD Fernsehen. In relation to the summit and the paying of European Union funds to countries with rule of law problems. Now, how to sort of put this in writing so that it has teeth?
Yes. To Mr. Hikomas.
Is this? I hope this is a question for everybody. The linking of payments of EU funds to the principle of rule of law is one of our presidency's principles. We've discussed the rule of law issue, and we're going to continue doing this. We have a new mechanism, the so-called peer review mechanism, and after we receive in September from Commission the rule of law report, then we will go further on this front. Now, it has naturally to be defined what are the criteria for any decisions on this front. But what's important for the German government is undoubtedly, well, I don't know what the discussions in Brussels will lead to, but I hope our principles will find consideration, and I hope the compromise, but compromise in Brussels has to be unanimous. So I expect a lot of negotiation on this.
Next question, please.
Jan Dörner, German newspaper, Stuttgarter Zeitung.
Jan Dörner, Stuttgarter Zeitung.
Baltic ministers, you voiced a lot of concern about Russia. Do you fear that a withdrawal of US troops from Germany could weaken NATO's deterrence against Russia? Und die zweite Frage an Sie, Herr Maas.
Second question to you, Mr. Maas. Germany, France, and Italy have said that countries delivering arms to Libya to face sanctions, and what these sanctions look like.
First, to answer the rule of law question. Of course, rule of law has to prevail. This is one of the corner principles of European Union, and there should be no conditionality on that matter. And so it shouldn't be reflect also in that matter that okay, I will refuse for money or I will pay some kind of check, and then I can preach rule of law. This will be unmoral. So there, of course, from the perspective, and therefore I think. These initiatives which have carried out as peer review on countries and rule of law, Estonia welcomes that. We are going to be in the first group amongst these countries, and I think this is something which solidifies in a way union, not fragments it. But I remember also some proposals from the past when it was also to link some kind of fiscal payments of EU money about the migration issues when from the Commission side. this is not, I'm not a proponent again. This is again, human rights, international law principles should not be mixed or divided on the money issues. There are different shelves, I would say. But I hope there will be a compromise reached tonight. Let's see, perhaps not. Let's see what happens. Now, about the possible withdrawal of German from Germany, not German troops from US, but from Germany, US troops. This is we left as a dessert. We are going during the lunchtime. We are going to discuss security issues, surely also in our continent. But to take from the perspective, from Estonian perspective, surely there is not that we are having US troops like too much in Europe. No, no. There is a deficit of Europe, or in Europe, of US troops. From Estonian perspective, we would like to see more. So it means if there is going to be leave of US troops from Europe, surely we need to rebalance it somehow in the NATO, but I'm sure that NATO's deterrence posture will remain steadfast, no doubt about that.
Mr. Rinkevich?
Yes. Thank you very much. Well, first of all, I rely on two of my colleagues who are both former ministers of justice on the rule of law issues, and I very much want to follow their lead, but Latvia is also the member of the Friends of Rule of Law, and we agreed that there are issues that we need to address. We also know that there have been very difficult discussions so far in Brussels. Amount of money is one issue, but also rule of law issues that are related to the governance of the recovery fund are also heatedly debated. And I do believe that what Heiko just said, that we already have a very good way how to address those issues through the annual commission reports, through peer review, and also, well, we always have the nuclear option of Article 7, both 7.1, 7.2, those are mechanisms. What we want to see is that rule of law is not politicized, and that there are mechanisms that actually correspond to the very spirit of the rule of law, and I very much hope that compromise will be reached. On the second question about the withdrawal of the American troops from Germany, look, we are not happy about any changes in the American posture. I very much agree with Urmas. If there would be more American troops in Europe, that would benefit European security and also transatlantic relationship. We do understand that details are still being considered and we are not fully briefed, but we very much hope that ultimately this is not about, let's say, somebody gaining, somebody losing when it comes to security, that actually there is going to be a very solid transatlantic security dialogue, including each and every aspect. And we are in a permanent discussion with our American allies. We are in a permanent discussion with our European allies. And as Urmas said, we are going to address this issue a bit later in detail. But my initial take is that we would love to see American troops staying in Germany, but more troops actually being deployed also to the east of Germany. So that would be my answer before we have actually touched upon this issue among this gang of four.
Urmas just announced that there will be no dessert, just some discussions instead, which is not good, I believe, but we will manage somehow. Not much to add on rule of law, but on this withdrawal of American troops, definitely we cannot consider this factor as a positive, and we believe we have to keep engaged United States in the security matters of Europe by all means, including presence. And this is not just about presence, it's also about policies, about initiatives we are developing ourselves. It's important to have more trust, because we need to engage US in cooperation programs of European Union, for instance PESCO, which is not done so far. And this is quite complex issue. When you asked about Russian, so to say, behavior, and this is also not only by presence of troops. It's also by something else, about consistency of our own policies, because Russians always testing waters, and they're trying to us, so to say, how far they can go, how much they can fix, creating this new normal by annexing neighboring countries. Now they're passing constitution with supremacy of national law vis-a-vis international law, legitimizing what was done wrong. And this is again our question about our behavior. So this is not only about deterrence. It's not just presence of troops. This is physical deterrence, very important, but it's also a wider issue of our policies, what we are discussing always, and we continue to discuss, I believe, today, and not only among these four colleagues, but in the context of European Union. So unfortunately, in Russia, we do not see any efforts to change anything, even in rhetoric. And when country cannot get rid of the philosophy of zero sum, cannot create, so to say, future, and trying to rewrite the past instead, which is maybe easier, to having the strange essays on history, questioning our freedom fight, or legitimizing Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. This is not only about history, it's about current policy, to legitimize what they're doing today, not only what was done many years ago. So this is also a test to us, how we will react. And I believe we should react, to continue to approach this principled position. It's not nothing to do with anti-Russian, by the way. It has to do with the also rule of law. It has to do with the values, principles, and they must be respected. And this is the only condition to have relations in the future, constructive relations, what we believe time will come. But unfortunately, it's not yet, not now.
Thank you. And we have a question.
Ich würde noch die Frage beantworten,
I'd like to answer the question put to me concerning sanctions against countries breaking the embargo in Libya. We know that materials, as well as sometimes are being taken to Libya by boat and by plane, and we are looking closely at the persons and entities that are involved in these activities. So everybody should be aware that if they directly or through a third country are bringing weapons to Libya, they are going to be listed with the consequences, all the consequences that it entails. That said, we're going to continue dealing with the question of direct sanctions against countries breaking the embargo. They could be a further measure to be taken.
Yes, Viljar Voog, Õhtuleht newspaper. Question to the Baltic ministers, almost as a follow-up to the US troop question. What is the view in your nations of possibly hosting permanent US troops and bases? Thank you.
Well, I don't know if it works or not, but the big, well, the very short answer, we would be very happy to host permanently US troops, but not at the expense of other European friends and allies. I think that this is an issue that we have discussed already for quite a time. There is already rotational presence. We are also looking to other ways how to strengthen our security. But again, this should come as the framework of NATO, and as I said, not at the expense of our friends and allies in Europe. I think that, as I already answered in previous session, we would love to see more increase to the east of Germany, and we are ready to discuss this with our American friends.
We are quite assessing quite positive way what was done in the improvement of security in our region last years, and this is not only because of US engagement. And we just hosted a really big contingent of US soldiers for more than half of the year for exercises recently. It was never before. But we're also very grateful to Germany for enhanced forward presence as a framework nation. serving also in Lithuania and for whole Baltic region. So all in all, it creates more credibility, and definitely we assessing this as very, very positive. With regard to this rotational American troops, as I'm always saying, this terminology is important, but we would prefer permanently rotational troops, that without gaps preferably, and basically this is the fact. So definitely in parallel what is done by NATO and bilaterally with the United States, it's very important for the security of our region, because it's not a big secret. We're definitely missing some capabilities, some essential capabilities in Baltic states. And this is not a secret. There are some gaps, so definitely we expect that our allies will help us, same as they are doing with regard to air policing. So it's not just air policing; it's also air defense, which is important, and many other aspects. So by adding these capabilities, we believe we will making our security more reliable. So in short, we would welcome, and as I said, but not at the expense of German deployment, of course, because we need more American engagement in Europe in general, by all means, but I will not repeat what I said previously.
Thank you.
Yes, I agree with my colleagues. We would welcome more US troops in Germany. And we know the precise figure of US troops who would like to get to Estonia. That means more. Actually, this is something, well, permanent sounds very fatalistic, like eternal. Well, of course, we are not putting the, let's put the elephant to the room. This is a question about the regional security situation. And so, if there is a security deficit in the region, it needs to be balanced. And the deterrence by the Allies' troops is the key balancer of that.
Thank you. Thank you very much for joining.